I called off my wedding after the hotel manager accidentally revealed that my bride-to-be was kissing another man just days before the big day. Today was meant to be the happiest day of my life, the day I was to marry the love of my life. Instead, here I am writing about the misery that has overtaken my world. I, 37 meters, was set to marry Briana, 29F, today. A month ago, I proposed to her and she was overjoyed. We had been together for nearly 2 years and I felt it was the perfect time to exchange vows. I'm more of a quiet, introverted nerd. If you asked me to plan an event, I'd probably stick to the basics and call it a day. So when Briana suggested she take charge, I gladly handed over my credit card. That was my only contribution to our wedding. Briana wanted a wedding planner to handle the big day. She took charge of every detail. I was fine with a month-long preparation, but she insisted it would take at least 3 months to organize the wedding of her dreams. I agreed to let her lead. I met the planner once to finalize things, and the next time I saw them, my world came crashing down. Briana had shortlisted 2 wedding planners for me to meet and choose from. We decided on Mira, who was exceptionally skilled at her job. I trusted her expertise and focused on my work, trying to wrap things up before our planned week-long honeymoon in Paris. Briana kept me updated on the progress and everything seemed to be going smoothly. One day, Briana informed me that Mira had had an accident and fractured her knee. She was in a cast for 6 weeks. During her recovery, her stepbrother would take over her duties. A few days later, I asked Briana if everything was still on track, and she assured me that Mira's brother was managing well. 2 weeks before our wedding, the outdoor venue we had originally chosen was cancelled due to an unexpected rain forecast. We had to switch to an indoor location and the banquet hall of a 5-star hotel was selected. Briana asked me to take some time off work to visit the new venue and make the payment. I took 2 hours off, picked up Briana, and we drove to the location. When we arrived, I was surprised to see Mira there with her brother. She had recovered from her injuries, but her brother was still overseeing the arrangements. We were all waiting for the manager in charge of the booking to arrive. A few minutes later, a middle-aged woman walked in. She introduced herself as the banquet hall manager and immediately turned to Briana, saying, "You must be the bride. Your face is glowing with happiness." Our friends had also commented on how radiant Briana had been since my proposal. While the wedding might have been a factor, there were other reasons too. Briana's face turned pale when she saw the woman, and she seemed visibly uneasy. After greeting Briana warmly, the manager turned to Mira's brother, saying, "You're a lucky man to have such a beautiful fiancée. No wonder you couldn't keep your hands off her." Briana quickly interrupted, "There must be some misunderstanding." The manager, trying to ease the tension, added, "Oh, don't be embarrassed. You guys are so in love and about to be married. I run this hotel. I see couples making out in the elevator all the time, so it's no big deal to me." Mira, sensing the discomfort, tried to step in, but it was too late. She said, "We were here to discuss the final quotation for the venue." Without a word, I stood up and walked out. I couldn't sit there and pretend nothing had happened. The reality of what was going on hit me hard. Briana ran after me, trying to stop me. I closed the elevator doors on her face and hurried to the parking lot, driving off while I could see her chasing my car in the basement. That 15-minute drive to work was the hardest drive of my life. My phone was constantly buzzing with calls and voicemails from Briana. When I reached the office, I was too shaken to work. I asked the reception to hold all calls and meetings for the day and cancel all my pending appointments. Despite the dozens of missed calls from Briana, I responded curtly, "It's not what it sounded like. There's a misunderstanding." The receptionist mentioned that the lady might have mistaken me for someone else and wanted to apologize. She asked if I could meet her again to clear things up. I replied, "I'm not falling for that." The receptionist insisted that I meet the woman again to resolve the confusion. I hung up without saying another word and didn't respond to her calls after that. In the evening, Mira called. She apologized for involving herself in our personal matter but asked me to meet the woman and hear her out. I told Mira, "I don't know. I'm not in the right state of mind right now." After much thought, I decided to meet the woman to give her the benefit of the doubt, without telling Mira or Briana about it. The next day, I returned to the hotel and asked to speak with the lady. I was escorted to her office, where she apologized, explaining that she might have confused Briana with someone else. Her explanation didn't convince me. She could have been mistaken about one person, but not both. She suggested, maybe I saw Briana and that young man together during their site visit. Then I saw another couple making out and got confused. I asked if she could show me the elevator camera footage from the day Briana visited the venue. She suddenly turned pale and stammered, saying it was against company policy to show footage to outsiders. While I understood the security policy, her evasive behavior only made me more suspicious. I asked her why she was being so defensive and why she felt the need to be so apologetic. She admitted she was worried about losing her job if Mira reported her indiscretion to the hotel owner. I said, "Look, I don't buy your explanation, but if you're concerned about your job, I can assure you it won't be affected." I called Mira right in front of the lady and told her I was canceling the venue booking and asked her not to do anything that might jeopardize the lady's job. Mira asked if I had met the woman. I replied, "Yes, and she has cleared up the confusion, but I still want to call off the wedding, and it has nothing to do with the hotel manager." Mira acknowledged my decision and ended the call. The hotel manager thanked me as I was leaving, and before I left, she asked for my card, which I gave her. Later that evening, she called me again. She confessed that she had actually seen Briana with the wedding planner guy, and there was no misunderstanding. She had agreed to lie to protect her job. Briana had begged her to lie and even hinted that she might complain to the management about her nosy behavior. I asked her why she was revealing the truth now. She said, "I was kind to her and she wanted me to know the truth because she had suffered a broken marriage due to a cheating husband and understands the pain of betrayal." I accepted her explanation and didn't share this information with anyone. I'm not very social and my work keeps me busy. I had a close bond with my siblings, but I didn't tell them or my mom. Meanwhile, Briana continued to send me cute texts and selfies. I hadn't blocked her or confronted her about the truth, even though I knew the reality from the moment I met the manager. Meeting her a second time made me reflect on Briana's cruelty. How could she stoop so low as to threaten that woman's job and force her to lie? Now I wonder if I really knew the woman I was supposed to marry today. On the day of the wedding, I didn't go home. I spent the night at my office. The next day, I met the woman at the hotel, and everything became crystal clear. That evening, I called Mira and asked her to come to my office. When she arrived, I told her I wanted to terminate the contract. I was ready to pay whatever was required under their policy, along with some extra compensation for her loss, but she politely refused. She charged me only what was stipulated in the contract and, out of empathy, refunded me a little extra. I suspect it was her way of atoning, given the chaos her low-life brother had caused in our lives. She said she would initiate the exit formalities and email me once everything was sorted. Briana continued to text me, asking when I would come home and sending loving messages. She flipped when Mira sent the contract termination email. Briana panicked and called, begging me to come home and talk things out like adults. I told her she needed to vacate my house. There was nothing left to discuss. She came to my office, but I asked the reception not to let her into my cabin and to tell her I was busy. I called her and asked her to leave, explaining that I wasn't in a state to have any rational conversation and that she shouldn't bother me for a while. She vacated the house with her essentials but left the car I had gifted her for her last birthday. I've been holding myself together until now, but today was supposed to be my wedding. Calls from friends and relatives are making it worse, so I switched off my phone this morning. For the next week, I lived in isolation, limiting my conversations to my senior staff for work-related matters. I asked my wedding planner to send a cancellation email to all the guests, which led to a flood of calls and texts from nearly everyone. My side of the family was deeply concerned about me, while her family and friends were urging me to reconcile. Briana continued to tell everyone that I had called off the wedding over some trivial misunderstanding. I decided to let it be. After a week of sulking and brooding over my sorrows, I had to return to work. I don't have the luxury of just leaving the city and disappearing like some people I've read about on this subreddit. I wish I had that luxury now. I'm cursing myself for even getting involved in this relationship. Thankfully, I've been able to stay away from all this turmoil for a while. I should have been more cautious. My friends were right when they said I was late to the wedding bells. My family situation had a lot to do with it. My dad passed away during my final year of college, leaving his manufacturing business to me. I have a sister and a younger brother. My sister was a freshman and my brother was still in high school when Dad passed, so everything fell onto my shoulders. Our business wasn't at a multinational level that could operate with a board and trustees without the owner's presence. It was a mid-sized manufacturing business that needed someone to run it to survive. I quickly stepped in to take over. We had no other choice. We had a house mortgage and college expenses for my siblings, and my mom, who isn't a working woman, needed support. I worked tirelessly to learn the business and tried to scale it up. I was so absorbed in my work that my love life took a backseat. I had a few flings here and there, but nothing serious, not even casual relationships. Mostly, it was just one-night stands. I met Briana 2 years ago at a mutual friend's party. She was so bubbly and cheerful that I couldn't take my eyes off her. We started with a casual fling, and I didn't realize when I had started to fall for her. She deserves a lot of credit for putting up with my hectic schedule. She was patient and understanding of my work commitments. That's why when Briana expressed her desire for a wedding of her choice, I agreed without hesitation. She deserved to have her dream wedding, or so I thought until now. I haven't shared the full reason for our wedding fallout with many people. My mom and siblings knew, but for everyone else, it wasn't necessary for them to know. Briana showed up at my mom's house thinking she was unaware of the truth and asked her to help us reconcile. Out of respect, my mom didn't reveal everything and said she would ask me to call her. I was reluctant, but my mom convinced me that having closure was necessary for moving on. I'm not sure if I truly need closure or if I've already moved on without it. I'll reach out if I feel the need to get answers. Edit 1. I have canceled the honeymoon bookings to Paris. The insurance covered most of it, so I got a refund, except for the flight booking, which I canceled last minute. Edit 2. To those calling her a gold digger, please refrain from using that term. I don't want to label her in such a way because she cheated. SB cheated, and I call off the wedding. That's all. I don't want to be unnecessarily disrespectful toward her. Update 2 of Briana showed up at my door yesterday. I knew it was only a matter of time. If this had happened earlier, I might have sought a restraining order against her, but now I think my anger has subsided. The pain is still there, but I felt ready to at least hear her out. I let her in. She wanted to hug me, but I stopped her before she could start speaking. I told her I knew the truth and asked her not to try to manipulate me. She went silent for a moment and then said she was there to confess. She claimed that cheating was never intended, but it just happened. One thing led to another. When Mira injured her knee, Briana said she was terrified about the whole arrangement and also annoyed. Her brother Aaron AP took over and she got more involved to make everything seamless. At first, I didn't notice him closely. Our interactions were purely transactional. It wasn't until we went for the wedding dress trial that I noticed how meticulously he selected everything to match my taste and elegance. He was just being overly nice and sweet to me. She apologized, saying she knew she screwed up. She confessed she had fallen for his flirtatious comments about her beauty and features. She admitted she was seeking validation from him and that it was so flattering she couldn't resist. She broke down, crying uncontrollably. I asked her when things crossed the line. She hesitated and then asked if I really wanted to know all the details. I said yes. She revealed that during our visit to the hotel venue, Aaron had picked me up. She was taken aback by his chivalry. In the car, he tried to touch her, but she didn't respond. Eventually, they made out in the elevator, which was when the manager saw them coincidentally. She saw them again when they were leaving the hotel, making out once more. I asked if that was all. She stammered, no. Then they booked a room in the same hotel and had sex 2 to 3 times. The thought of it suffocated me so badly that I had to step outside to get some air. Was that everything? She said yes. And then the next day, that lady at the hotel revealed the truth. Briana was also choking from heavy breathing. I could see her guilt was tearing her apart. She looked pathetic. She kept crying and apologizing. I couldn't hold back my tears. She grabbed my arms and asked if there was the slightest chance of getting back together. I said no. She let Aaron sleep with her because he showered her with compliments. It was such a cheap deal for her. I can't trust someone so shallow. If her reason is that his flattering words lured her into his bed, then there are countless areas where I might falter and others might excel. I'm busy with work. I'm not the romantic type. I'm introverted and not very good at giving compliments. This means every time she meets a guy who has qualities I don't, she might cheat. She accused me of indirectly calling her a term. I clarified that I wasn't labeling her but speaking the truth. She had never cheated on me before, and she always said my love was enough for her. I wish it were, but it isn't. I don't want to live with the constant fear of insecurity and the possibility that she might meet someone better and repeat this again. There were several rounds of breakdowns, crying, and hours of apologies. I realized it wasn't working and was only getting worse, especially for me. I was weakening and falling for her tears. So I gathered my strength, stood up, and told her I had packed her remaining things in the garage. She didn't say anything and just continued sobbing. I came back an hour later and she was gone. I checked the garage and her stuff was gone. I feel lighter now. Indeed, closure helped in my case. I didn't think I needed it, but I'm glad I listened to my mom and gave it a chance. Update 3 This will likely be my last update. I might delete this account later. Updating here has really helped me clear my head and move on. Thanks to everyone who made me feel I'm not alone in this. I have unblocked Briana, but I've made it clear that we are not going to be together. She understands that now and doesn't bother me. She also confessed the truth to her parents, who then called me to apologize. After I canceled the wedding, they were literally threatening to hunt me down. After learning the truth, they were genuinely sorry. I told them it was fine and understandable. I have no hard feelings toward them. Now that my anger has subsided, I feel maybe I have a role to play in this situation too. I need to work on expressing my feelings and letting my loved ones know how much I love them. Communication has been my problem. I love my family deeply and would give my legs and arms for them, but I rarely tell them that I love them. The same goes for Briana. I loved her more than anything else, but I wasn't generous in expressing that feeling. She's the prettiest woman I've ever seen, yet I didn't tell her that enough. I'm not justifying her cheating at all, nor am I planning any reconciliation, but I feel this is partly my fault. I've scheduled an appointment with a therapist and I'm looking forward to working on this aspect of my personality. I don't wish to pursue any serious relationships now, at least not in the near future. Heartbreak is hard. It's damn hard. Thanks for reading this and engaging with my post. I appreciate all the comments, both good and bad. Now on to the next story. Story 2 My wife and I plan to learn French together in France. After saving for years and making the move, I discovered she was cheating on me with a classmate. My wife and I used to be best friends before we married. We met in college, but we became close friends about 3 years after we graduated. My wife was going through a very tough season when our friendship started. She had recently lost her father to cancer, and around the same time, she caught her best friend with her fiancé. I can't explain how we got so close, but I remember we started talking one day and never stopped for 2 years. We were best friends and told each other everything. I was always happy to have her around because I loved her aura. She was always so energetic and her laughter was heart-melting. Aside from this, my wife and I were very much alike. We had similar passions, loved the same sports, and had similar hobbies. It was almost like we were born to be with each other. As time passed, I realized I had fallen in love with my wife, so I boldly asked her out, and she said yes. We dated for 10 months and then got married. Being married to my wife was fun initially because we were always eager to explore and try new things together. She had a very open mind and would jump on any idea I had. We didn't have any kids yet, but we had a solid plan to start a family after 3 years. My wife worked as a secretary in a big pet store while I was a mechanic at a car brand company. We were both actively planning for our future with a clear vision since we started dating. While we were dating, we agreed to learn at least 3 different languages before we grew old, and the first language on our list was French. We could have simply downloaded a language app, learned on YouTube, or taken an online class, but my wife insisted that we travel to France to learn the language, experience the culture, and be in a class with a native French speaker. It sounded like a great idea, and since we loved to explore, we started saving for it. For 2 years, we put money aside every month for our France trip, and when we believed we had enough, we made our trip. It was our first time in France, so you can imagine we were like children who had been to Disneyland for the first time. We loved everything we saw, and being surrounded by people who spoke French constantly motivated us to take our studies seriously. We started classes the same week since we had already checked out the school we wanted to enroll in before traveling to France. We were in a class of about 15 people who also wanted to learn the language, and it was so much fun. Our class was only meant to last for 3 months. My wife believed that 3 months of learning directly from a French native would help us grasp the basics of the language, and she was right. Living in an environment of mostly French speakers also helped a lot. For the 3 months we were in France, we had so much fun and enjoyed our stay. We had the opportunity to connect with other people and made a couple of friends. My wife was a very social butterfly, and she made friends effortlessly. She even had more friends in our class than I did, and I didn't mind. I knew it was her personality and her way of finding more people to practice the language with. Well, I was wrong. My wife was involved in something far more serious than just trying to practice the language with her new friends. Towards the end of our class, it was mandatory for everyone to take an examination, and we had successfully entered that phase. One day, while my wife and I were in our short-let apartment preparing for our exams that afternoon, her phone buzzed. She had left her phone on one of her textbooks and went into the room to sort out what she'd wear later. When I looked at her phone screen, I saw that the message was written in French, and I was impressed that my wife had reached the point of receiving messages in French. Curious, I decided to read the message to test my French reading skills, and I could understand parts of it. There were some words that confused me, but I did catch something suspicious. To be sure of what I had read, I used a language translator and was shocked by what I discovered. Through translating the messages into English, I found out that my wife was having an affair with one of our classmates. He had been her seat partner a couple of times, and they got along well. Not only that, but they were also planning to cheat in the exam and then sleep together afterward, essentially betraying me. I was so mad and felt deeply betrayed. I couldn't believe that my wife, who I had trusted and loved, was having an affair with someone she barely knew for 3 months. She chose to destroy our marriage, erase our memories, and sabotage every plan we had made for our future. After regaining my composure, I snapped a picture of the message with my phone. Just as I did that, my wife walked into the living room. I tried to control my emotions, as many men on this channel had advised, but I couldn't. It was eating me up inside, and before I knew it, I confronted her and yelled. She tried to deny it, claiming there was nothing going on between them and that maybe I had misinterpreted the message. I showed her the English translation, and she fell silent. After a few minutes of silence, she said she could explain and that she was only trying to explore and have fun. I nearly exploded when she said that, but I forced myself to stay calm and walked out. Immediately, I left the house and went straight to the school. I showed the text message to the person I knew was in charge. When the text message reached the right people, all the previous exams my wife and her affair partner had written were automatically cancelled. Since we had a couple of papers left before I returned to our country, I had to stay with one of the new male friends I made there until I completed my last paper. After finishing my last paper, I returned home before my wife. I avoided her completely during our stay in France and ignored her calls and the numerous voicemails she sent. When she returned, she found all her belongings on the front porch. Even then, she still tried to beg for forgiveness, claiming that she and her affair partner hadn't done anything serious except for kisses. At that point, I didn't care if they had done anything serious. Her intentions were what mattered most to me. We eventually divorced, but before we went our separate ways, my results came out, and I aced them. As for my wife and her affair partner, they were given the option to retake the class, but that would be at their own expense. She couldn't afford another class as it had taken us 2 years to save up for that trip and cover our accommodation. It still hurts when I remember how much we were in love, our plans, and the life we were building together, but it's all for the best. Being single is better than being with a woman who jumps into the arms of any man she gets close to. I know I've moved on, but it will take a long time to trust or date another woman.